November 2024, paper 2, variant 2. Two forces with magnitudes F1 and F2 act at right angles to each other. What is the magnitude of the resultant force? The magnitude would be using Pythagorean theorem, or square root a squared plus b squared. A boy takes 30 minutes to cycle a distance of 8 kilometers. He then walks a further distance of 2 kilometers in 15 minutes. What is his average speed? We need the speed in kilometers per hour. So total distance over total time. Total distance is 8 plus 2, which is 10 kilometers, and the total time is 30 minutes and 15 minutes, right? 30 plus 15, which is 45 minutes. But you need to convert this time into hours, divided by 60. Okay, so 45 divided by 60 is 0.75. What's 10 divided by 0.75? This is 13.3 or 13 kilometers per hour. A small light ball is dropped from the top of a tall building. Which graph shows how the speed of the ball changes with the time? How does the speed change with the time? It increases and then it eventually reaches terminal velocity at c. Which statement about gravitational field strength is not correct? It changes the mass of an object? Not correct. Yes, this is wrong. So it does not change the mass of the object. It is equivalent to the acceleration of a free fall. Yes, it is measured in newtons per kilogram or meters per second squared. Same thing. Its magnitude is different on other planets. It is. 3 liquids P, Q, and R have different densities. Which statement about the density of the block is correct? Density of the block is correct. So the block, when you place the block at this point, it sank, and then it reached this point at which it floated. So the density of the block has to be greater than Q and has to be greater than R, right? It is greater than Q and greater than R. So the only correct answer is C. It's greater than R, right? This student or the diagram shows a uniform beam. Student applies two forces F1 and F2. Which row is correct? The clockwise moment and the anti-clockwise moment. Clockwise moment would be F2 times the distance, which is D4. So it's either C or D. F1 and D3. So it is D. Which expression can be used to determine the impulse? Impulse, force times time, right? Force times time. Which row shows how the process by which the energy in the sun is released? The energy in the sun, is it released by fission, by fusion? Process by which the energy is transferred from the sun to the earth. From the sun to the earth, is it by convection? Can it be by convection? No, it cannot. It has to be by radiation. So the only correct answer is D. An object has a mass of 20 kilograms. It's taken up the stairs through a height of 4 meters. What is the increase in the gravitational potential energy? So mgh 20 times 9.8 times 4, giving you a total energy of 780 joules. Okay, an electrician uses a lifting machine as shown. It takes 4.5 seconds to lift an electrician a vertical height of 3.2 meters. The mass is 72 kilograms and the power of this motor is 2 kilowatts. Can I find the efficiency? Yes, I can find the efficiency. First of all, can I find the power? Can I find the power taken to lift this man? Yes, the power would be the energy over the time. Power would be energy over time, or mgh over t. The mass is 72 times 9.8 times the height 3.2 divided by the time taken 4.5 seconds, right? What's 72 times 9.8 times 3.2 divided by 4.5? This is 501, or you can say 502 watts. Can I find the efficiency? Yes, the efficiency would be the useful output energy, which is 502 over the total input energy, or we're talking about power, so the useful output power divided by the total input power, giving you an efficiency of 0.25. It's only 25% efficient. Some altimeters use the change in air pressure to measure height. If the pressure is 100 kilopascals at sea level, what will the pressure be at the top of an 830-meter hill be? Take the density of the air to be constant at 1.3 kilograms per meter cubed. Can I find the pressure? Yes, I can find the pressure. Pressure equals what? Rho G H, right? You have the density. Let's calculate it. Okay, let's calculate it. If I say 1.3 times 9.8 times 830, this will give you a pressure of 10,057, right? This will give you a pressure of 10,574, I'm sorry, 574 pascals. If I say rho GH, right? Okay, so what is the problem? A lot of you might say, well, the answer would be, the answer would be A, right? Even though A is wrong, even though A is wrong, or even if you say B, for example, it's 11,000 pascals, B is again wrong. Why is B wrong? Because this would be the change in pressure. This is the change in pressure. Let me write it down. This is the delta P. It's not the final pressure. This is what? This is the change in pressure. How can I find the final pressure? Can I find the final pressure? Yes, the initial pressure was 10,000 pascal, 100,000 pascals. Again, the initial pressure was 100,000 pascals. Can I find the final pressure? Yes. As you go upwards on the top of the hill, what happens to the pressure? The pressure decreases by how much? By this much. It decreases by how much? By this much. So if we say, well, 100,000 minus 10,574, okay, would give me an answer of 89,000, which is 89 kilopascals. This would be the final pressure. Again, 10,570 or 11,000 pascals. This is the change in pressure. Water can exist in three states, solid, liquid, and gas. In which states is the motion of the water particles only vibrational? Only vibrates in ice because it is a solid. A cube has sides of 2 meters long. It contains pressure at 8,000 newtons per meter squared. Second cube has sides of 4 meters. What is the pressure of the gas inside the second cube? Okay, what should I do? I'll say P1 V1 equals P2 V2. I can solve it this way. P1 V1 equals P2 V2. And we know as the volume increases, the pressure will decrease eventually. What was the initial volume? The initial volume was 2 times 2 times 2, right? It was 8 meters cubed, right? What is the final volume? 4 times 4 times 4, right? Which is 64 meters cubed. Can I find the final pressure? Yes, the final pressure P2 would be equal to P1, 8,000 times 8 divided by 64, giving you a final pressure of 1,000 newtons per meter cubed, which rho gives the correct name for each change of state shown. Each change of state shown. Gas to liquid, yes, it is condensation. Liquid to solid. Liquid to solid, solidification. Solid to liquid, melting, yes, B. In an experiment to measure the specific heat capacity, which expression would give the specific heat capacity? C equals E over M delta T. C equals E over M delta T. Which statement about the transfer of thermal energy is correct? Transfer of thermal, all metals conduct thermal energy equally well. No. Convection can happen in solids. No. Convection occurs in liquids because hot liquid is more dense. Again, wrong. The radiation that transfers thermal energy is Yes, it is a type of electromagnetic radiation or infrared radiation to be more specific. What is the number of wavefronts per second? Number of wavefronts per second is the frequency. An earthquake under the ocean can produce dangerous water waves called a tsunami. The table gives the typical data. Student suggests 3 conclusions about the data. Which conclusions are correct? Which conclusions are correct? The deeper the ocean, the faster the wave. This is something we already know, yes. The deeper the ocean, the faster the wave, yes. The longer the wavelength, the faster the wave. Longer the wavelength, the faster the wave. Yes, this is correct. The faster the wave, the higher the frequency. The faster the wave, the higher the frequency. No, it does not have to do with. Okay, so it would be wrong. What causes the change in the shape? Shape would be diffraction. A ray of light passes from air into glass. The angle of incidence is 40. The angle of refraction is 25. Which labeled position is the object placed? The lens produces a real enlarged image. Real enlarged image. For it to be real, it cannot be D or C. For it to be enlarged, it has to be between F and 2F. So it's B. Speed of the electromagnetic wave in vacuum, 3 times 10 to the power of 8, or 300 million meters per second, right? Which is 300,000 kilometers per second. The starter in an athletics race, okay, fires the starting pistol. There's a wall 60 meters from him. The speed is 330 meters per second. How long after firing the pistol does he hear the echo? So we know that the speed in the echo is 2 distance over time. Can I find the time? 2 distance over speed. So 2 times 60 over 330. 120 divided by 330, which is almost 0.36 seconds. Where is the strength of the field greatest? This is a very easy question, honestly. It's A. Positive ion in a vacuum moves in a steady speed in a straight line. When the positive ion enters the region between P and Q, it changes the direction. Which direction of the electric field? So if this is a positive ion, it has to move to the negative field because this is the positive field, right? So the direction of the electric field would be upwards, right? The direction of the electric field would be upwards, or we can say C, right? How much energy is supplied to the resistor in this time? Energy E equals E equals VIT, or you can say E equals VQ, right? So the voltage is 2 and the charge is 5, which is 10 joules. 27, diagram showing the filament lamp. What happens to the filament lamp as the temperature increases? As the temperature increases, the resistance increases. And when the resistance increases, it curves towards the voltage axis. Curves towards the voltage axis, meaning that the resistance has increased. Diagram shows the electrical circuit. Which statement is correct? Which statement is correct? If you have several resistors, this is a parallel circuit, what happens? You'd say that the current near the source is the greatest. So A1 has to be the greatest. A1 has to be the greatest. It doesn't matter whether it has a resistor near it or whatever, the current near the power source is the greatest as long as you have a parallel circuit. If it was a series circuit, then all of them would have been equal, but since this is a parallel circuit, then the current near the power source would be the greatest. Okay, moving on to question 29, which equation would be used to find the combined resistance of the circuit? R1 plus R2 and R3. The R2 and R3 are in parallel, so you'd say product over sum. product over sum, R2 times R3 over R2 plus R3, right? Product over sum. Please do not forget this. Product over sum. An electrical engineer has made a pair of components P and Q. The resistance of P decreases as temperature increases. Maybe it's a thermistor. The resistance of Q increases as temperature rises. Okay, so it's maybe a resistance wire, for example, or something. The total resistance of P and Q, total resistance of P and Q in series, remains constant when the temperature changes. Again, the total resistance remains constant of P and Q. When you add them together, the total resistance remains constant. The two components are connected in series with a power source. Which statement is correct? If a temperature change causes the potential difference across P to double, the potential difference across Q will always half. Does it have to be halved? No, it does not. It does not have to be halved. It could change to another value. It doesn't have to be exactly halved. Okay, at one point, yes, if there is one point at which if it's doubled it would be halved, but it's not a must for when P to be doubled that Q would have to be halved. It's not a must. Yes, there is one case, one very rare case at which if it's doubled the other one would be halved. Yes, but other than that it wouldn't be halved. Okay. The difference between the potential difference across P and Q does not change with the temperature. No, it does change. Difference does change. The potential difference across component P increases as temperature rises. Potential difference across P, well, he said that the resistance decreases when the temperature increases, meaning that when the resistance increases, the voltage also decreases. So this is wrong. It should decrease. The sum of the potential differences across P and Q does not change with temperature. The sum, again, the sum of the potential differences does not change with temperature. Yes, it does not change with temperature. How is that so? If you have the power source and then you have the thermistor and the whatever other resistor or something, or the sum of these two potential differences. If this is 12 volts, then this would be, let's say, 2 volts, and this is 10 volts. Whatever happens to the temperature, whatever happens to the resistance, as the temperature increases or as the temperature decreases. For example, if this is now 5, this would also be 7. Why? Because the sum of them does not change, because the sum will always be the same as the power source. Okay? Diagram shows a wire XY moving upwards in a magnetic field. A current is induced in the wire. Current is induced in the wire. The current carrying wire XY experiences a force because of its interaction with the magnetic field. It experiences a force, right? Which row gives the direction of the induced current and the direction of the force experienced by the wire. So can I find the direction of the force? Yes, I can find the direction of the force using the Fleming's right-hand rule. From north to south, direct to the right, and then you've got the current, second finger moving from X to Y, right, because of the force moving upwards. So the direction of the current would be from X to Y, right? From X to Y. Direction of the force, now I am moving the force upwards, right? Therefore, there has to be some sort of reaction force. There has to be some sort of a reaction force on the wire. In which direction? In the downward direction. The reaction force has to be downwards. Okay? Opposes the change causing it. If you can remember, it opposes what is opposing? Opposing, if the force is upwards, then it wants to oppose it downwards. Diagram 1 shows a magnet being pushed into a coil that is connected to a center zero sensitive voltmeter. Which row shows the directions of the pointer of the voltmeter? As the magnet moves. In the diagram 1, it was moving this direction, and the center zero sensitive voltmeter was all the way to the left. As it's stationary, it's not moving, then it should read 0, right? It should read 0. And then as it's moving in the opposite direction, what happens? It should read in the opposite direction. So diagram 2 would be 0, diagram 3 would be all the way to the left. What is the purpose of the brushes and the split ring commutator in a DC motor? This is easy. To change the size of the current? No, to keep the coil turning in the same direction. Yes, in the same direction. Diagram shows a beta particle being directed between the poles of a magnet. Which direction would the particles be deflected? In which direction will they be deflected? Using Fleming's right-hand rule, right? Fleming's right-hand rule. You'd have the direction north to south, pointing downwards, beta particles moving to the right, and therefore the force would be out of the page. The force would be out of the page. Or you can use Fleming's left-hand rule and say that the force will be in the opposite direction, okay, out of the page. An alpha particle and the beta particle have the same kinetic energy. Why does the alpha particle have a larger ionizing effect than the beta particle? Let's see. Alpha particle has a larger charge. Yes, it does have a larger charge. So C and D are wrong. And a larger velocity or a smaller velocity? Alpha, does it have a larger or smaller? It has a smaller velocity. Alpha has a smaller velocity. Why? Because its mass is much, much larger than the beta particle. Therefore, it takes a longer time to ionize the particles around it, the air molecules around it. Question 36. A student is carrying out an experiment to measure the radiation from a radioactive source. He uses the radiation detector and records the total counts in 5-minute intervals. He does this 3 times with the source present and 3 times with the source absent. And these are his results. What is the average corrected count rate for the source? Okay. So when you have the source present and when you have the source absent, can I find the background radiation? Yes, for the first one. Or can I just find the corrected count rate? Yes, I can find the corrected count rate. 68 minus 25, this is 43. 73 minus 28, this is 45. And 69 minus 22, this is 47. Can I find the average of these 3 results? Yes, I can add them. So 43 plus 45 plus 47 divided by 3, which is 45 counts, right? So a lot of you might say it's D, right? Even though D is wrong. And you'd say, well, I have no idea why is D wrong. Why is D wrong? Because of a very, very small detail that most of you might have ignored. The thing is that he records the total count in 5-minute intervals. In what? In 5-minute intervals. And the average count rate or corrected count rate is in what? Counts per minute. Counts per minute. Counts per minute. So these 45 counts, are they in 1 minute? No, they're actually in 5 minutes. So 45 divided by 5 is what? Is 9 counts per minute. 45 is the total count rate or the average count rate in 5 minutes. To find the average count rate in 1 minute, you need to divide by 5 to find the average count rate. Okay, I know it's a bit tricky. Question 37. The count rate measured near a radioactive source drops from 542 to 94 in 12 hours. There is a background radiation of 30 counts per minute. What is the half-life of the source? Well, first of all, I need to you need to minus, divide, and then plus. Or you can just minus and divide. How can I do that? 542 minus 30, which is 512, and 94 minus 30, which is 64. How did I go from 512 to 64? So 512 divided by 2 is 256. divide by 2 again, it's 128, divide by 2 again, it's 64. I took 3 half-lives, right? 3 half-lives in a total time of 12 hours. So 12 divided by 3, which is 4 hours. Each half-life takes a total time of 4 hours. What happens when a protostar becomes a stable star? Protostar becomes a stable star. Stable is when they are equal, when the forces are equal. Most of the hydrogen is converted to helium. No. The inward force is balanced. Yes, they are balanced by the outward force. Which statement about the planets is correct? So we have the mass compared with the Earth, the average density, the gravitational field strength. As the mass compared with the Earth increases, the average density increases. As the mass increases, no, it does not. That's wrong. As the mass compared with the Earth increases, the gravitational field strength increases. 1 became 320, so the gravitational field, it was 9.825. Okay, it increased. 1, 0.6, 9.8, 3.8, decreased. Yes, correct. 115, 9.8, 10. So yeah, as it increases, yes, the gravitational field strength increases. So B is correct. Which quantity is the estimate of the age of the universe? 1 over h naught.